book lovers, it is G-Swizz here, and I'm here today to do the mid-year book freakout tag of 2022. I really hope that someone who watches Parks and Recreation gets the reference on my shirt today. This tag was created by two of the most amazing people in the world, Chami and Ellie. Honestly, I love this time of the year. I love any kind of chance I can get to check in, especially when I've really got to check in because I've completed 150 books within the first half of the year. So there's a lot of checking in to do. But this is also a great chance to look forward as we currently have another half of the year to get through. There's nothing like making plans. So I guess without further ado, I'm gonna get straight into this check-in and let you guys know how I've been going so far and what I'm very much looking forward to. So the first prompt of the tag is, what is the best book you've read so far this year? I've mentioned this in my June wrap-up. It has 100% gotta be Rhapsodic by Laura Thalassa. I love the way that this story is told. I also absolutely love the entire trilogy. However, Rhapsodic, I'd have to say, is the perfect first book, and it kind of almost feels like it's its own story because this first book is so centered around the love story and how the two main characters get together, whereas the rest of the trilogy is very much focused on what happens next in their lives. While the rest of the series is romantic, it's not as romantically driven as this first book because this is essentially their love story. This book was definitely a game changer in terms of my reading life this year. I didn't think that I would fall in love with a book so hard until I read this book, and I didn't read it in one sitting. This was one of those books that I had to soak in over a few days, and it's very rare that I do that because a lot of the time I do want to read books like very quickly. Like for some reason, sometimes when I'm reading, I have high adrenaline and I must keep going. Whereas with this book, I felt like I needed to take my time with it and I didn't want this first book to be over. I just didn't want the whole trilogy to be over. The other two books in the trilogy, I believe I read within like one day. However, this book, it took me a few days to a week to get through. I don't regret that because it was such a beautiful experience that I savored every moment of. The second prompt of this tag is, what is the best sequel you've read this year? And that's hands down got to be Court by Tracy Wolff. I mean, I did love the finale to the Bargainer trilogy. That is definitely got to be an honorable mention. I'm not saying that Court is better, however, I want to diversify my answers. If we're just focusing on a sequel, Court by Tracy Wolff has definitely got to take the cake here. I love the decisions that Tracy made in this book. I really feel like they should have been made earlier. They should have been made in Covet. However, it makes the experience of getting from Crave all the way to Court worth it. I love the emotional payoff. I love getting to know some new characters that we do in this series and in Court. I'm not okay with that cliffhanger, but I'm so excited to continue on with the series. We have two more books left. One of those books being somewhat of a diversion from the series, and that is Charm. I'm very much looking forward to that. That's essentially a love story between two characters, and I'm not necessarily going to spoil anything here, but Cherish is the finale, and this book leads into the finale. Prompt number 3 is a new release that you haven't yet read, but you want to. The new release I've got to mention is Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Sue Lynn Tan. It just took me ages to finally get this book in hardback form. It's an absolutely pretty book, so I did want to own this hardback. I also really did want to read it because it's been endorsed many times, and I haven't necessarily heard any bad thing about it. From what I gather based on the length, it's going to be somewhat of a dense fantasy story, but I am here for it. And there's some romantic elements in there as well, and you guys already know I dig some romance. I honestly cannot wait to read Daughter of the Moon Goddess. I just haven't gotten around to it yet because I've only received my copy within the last month, but I definitely do need to prioritize this one. Prompt number 4 is, what is your most anticipated release for the second half of this year? And I have to say, hands down, it is A Light in the Flame by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This is the sequel to A Shadow in the Ember, which was one of my favorite books of last year. Considering I had to look at my top 21 books of the year last year, I pretty much based my answer on that. Considering that A Shadow in the Ember was the highest ranking on that list, that has a sequel coming out in the second half of the year. I'm also very much looking forward to continuing on with Sarah's story, and also, I mean, Daddy Niktos. I don't really have to say much else, but this answer leads on to the next question. What was your most disappointing read of 2022 so far? And the award for this prompt goes to The War of Two Queens by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This was the 4th book in the Blood and Ash series. And the main reason why some people hate it is not necessarily the reason why I do. I just found the story to have way too much exposition when we've already had too much exposition dumped on us from the past. And also, I don't agree with some of the character choices made in this book. I felt like some of the character choices were out of character. And this book doesn't necessarily only just make me me feel annoyed, it makes me upset, it makes me feel sick, it makes me feel kind of sad, and it took me a while to just grieve it, but I'm gonna have to reread it if I want to continue on with the series. Some people have vowed not to continue on with the series, but for some reason I'm just compelled to stay to see if Jennifer can rectify some of this train wreck and to see whether the series will still remain one of my favorites. But I have to say, the first 3 books are some of my favorite books ever. Prompt number 6 is the biggest surprise of the year. I have to say the biggest surprise of the year has got to be hands down It Happened One Summer. I had no idea that I would get into adult contemporary romance this year, but I have. And this book kind of set me up to do so. I really feel like It Happened One Summer was perfectly fleshed out. It was a very good story that kept me for quite some time. I wasn't necessarily expecting that from a romance contemporary. For some reason, when I think about romance contemporary, I just think about just a moment and then it goes. But for some reason, this story has stayed with me, and that's why I've decided to continue on with romance contemporaries, because I had a misconception that I would not necessarily be attached to the characters, and I guess Tessa Bailey kind of changed my mind. This was also one of the first books I read this year. I believe it was like the 2nd or 3rd, and it thoroughly impressed me. I've decided that I am here to stay in terms of romance contemporary. I mean, I still love me some good fantasy paranormal romance. However, this is also the good stuff. It's not necessarily my favorite genre, but Tessa Bailey really pleasantly surprised me through it, and she's definitely one of my favorite romance authors. This book series I absolutely loved and cannot wait to read even more from Tessa Bailey, and in the adult romance category. Prompt number 7 is your new favorite author. And I'd have to say my new favorite author of the year has got to be, hands down, Tessania Odette. This book series, absolutely amazing. The Layla trilogy, absolutely amazing. Both fantasy series that I've read from Tessania Odette have been incredible, and I cannot wait to read even more from her. She's instantly become an auto-author for me. There are so many books that I want to read from her now. I think that she does fantasy romance very well. Prompt number 8 is your newest fictional crush. And you know what? This book series I'm going to be using for prompts 8 and 9, because first of all, my newest fictional crush has hands down going to be Desmond Flynn. I just keep on swooning over Desmond Flynn. He starts off really grumpy and yes, very guarded for very good reason. However, oh my goodness, he's such a soft boy. I love him. I don't necessarily have many coherent thoughts. I just absolutely love him. I adore him. He's the kind of protective fae male that will absolutely take care of your needs at all times, is always looking out for you. Oh, it's so cute. Yes, I absolutely adored him in this trilogy, and reading about him in Calypso was absolutely wholesome. Also, as I mentioned before, the series also contributes to prompt number 9, who is your newest favorite fictional character, and that's 100% gonna be Calypso. Calypso kind of reminds me a little bit of Nesta from the ACOTAR series. She has been through a lot, however, she is strong in spite of it. And in my opinion, it's just so inspiring to see a fictional character like her. She's definitely an inspiration to me. Just reading about how strong and fierce she is, it just made me scream, yes, keep going. I love this couple so much. I would die for them. Prompt number 10 is, what is a book that made you cry? There's never only one. Let's do a montage, shall we? I guess those are just some, but not all. Prompt number 11 is, what is a book that made you happy? Which of the contemporary romances am I gonna bring up? I would have to say The Spanish Love Deception made me really happy. I think it made me really happy because I got to see some interracial romance representation in here, and a good chunk of this book focused on the interracial aspect of the relationship rather than just the relationship itself. And I understand why a lot of people don't necessarily like that. However, it made me feel happy, and in some way it made me feel seen. And this book inspired me to write my own romance novel eventually. Don't hold me to it because I get writer's block very easily. Prompt number 12 is, what is your favorite book to movie adaptation that you've seen so far this year? I don't know if there's been any movie adaptations, but there have definitely been TV show adaptations. And what I've got to mention today is a manga adaptation that has made me so happy. And that, my friends, is the manga adaptation of Spy Family. I have loved this manga for around 2 years now, and I'm pretty sure some of you guys already know this. You guys have been following my channel, and I have raved about Spy Family in the past. I absolutely love this series, and the fact that it's finally been adapted makes me so happy. Because not only Camilo is finally in the Spy Family fandom, but so many other people are. Spy Family is one of the most popular animes out there right now, and I'm just so happy that so many people are finally enjoying the Spy Family story with me. It's a very unique concept. It's not something that I would ever expect to pick up, and I think I remember picking this series up when I had no idea what else to pick up in manga, and I fell in love with manga again through this series. This is one of my favorite series. I still recommend it to everyone to this day if you haven't read it, but I have to say, if you haven't read it, and if you don't want to read manga, then watch the anime. It's so good. The next prompt is the most beautiful book that you've bought / received this year. There are too many. Honestly, if my Crave bookish box set finally came as I'm filming this video, it would be that, because I absolutely love the aesthetic of that series. However, it was delivered to me late due to them actually missing my address in dispatch. However, I've got a few other honorable mentions. I can't pick one, but I'll have to go with 3 different bookish box special editions. I'm not only mentioning this book series because it's my favorite series of the year so far, it's definitely one of my favorite special editions I've received so far. And that, my friends, is the Bargainer trilogy. Really love the stenciled pages they gave us with the set. I also love that the stencils go all the way around, and I also, most of all, really love the foiling on the hardbacks. Also, the end pages are really cool. I never actually pay attention to end pages, but I think those end pages are awesome. I love that every single one of these hardbacks have the foiling of what is on this front cover right here. There's also an alternative cover for every single one of them, but I personally just love the character art of these 2 characters, so I've decided that I'm going to be displaying it that way. But I just really love this foiling design. It's just incredible. So yes, that's definitely my favorite set I've received this year. But I also really love my first 2 books in the Touch of Darkness series that was also done by the Bookish Box. I really love Alethian art as an illustrator. I reckon that they did an amazing job with the set. I also really love the stenciled pages. Similarly to the Bargainer trilogy, I love that there is character foiling on the hardback. I reckon that this is a very beautiful addition to my collection as well. I only recently purchased the next 2 books from the Bookish Box. Finally, this has been really hard because the Bookish Box does really good editions, but I'd have to say finally it'd have to be the Midnight Girls. I think I really like this edition, not necessarily because of the front cover, but I also really love the stenciled edges here and the colored pages. Never usually paying attention to end pages. However, these have got to be some of my favorite end pages ever. I also really love the foiling here. This foiling is probably my favorite because it's not necessarily gold. It changes color. I really love the design. I kind of wish that this was the front cover because I love the coloring here. However, this is definitely my favorite part of the entire packaging. The second last prompt of this tag is, what books do you really need to read by the end of the year? First book I can think of is Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I've read every other one of Taylor Jenkins Reid's books so far. However, I've not yet read Malibu Rising, and I want to get to this one before I read Carrie Soto, which comes out later on this year. I also really need to get to the Entangled with Fae series by Tessandra Odette because book 4 is coming out later this year. And also, I need more books to read by Tessandra Odette because the Fair Isle trilogy was absolutely phenomenal. The Layla trilogy was also amazing. Everybody is absolutely raving about the Entangled with Fae series at the moment. The Entangled with Fae series is a companion series with all of them being fairy tale reimaginings. The first one being a Beauty and the Beast one, the second one being a Cinderella one, the third one being a Little Mermaid one, and the most recent one's going to be a Snow White one. I cannot wait to read these all because Tessandra Odette has not failed me so far. And the final prompt for this tag is, who is your favorite book community member? And I've got to mention Beck from Beckle Book. So I technically know Beck. I met Beck a couple of times. We actually live in completely different cities in Australia. And not only, in my opinion, is she an amazing person to hang out with, she's an incredible booktuber. It has been an honor to witness her channel grow over the years and to watch her. I really love her content, and I know that our book tastes are kind of different. However, I love hearing her perspective, and I also love the new video ideas that she comes up with. I just find it absolutely incredible. I'm honestly a consistent consumer of her content. I absolutely love her, and if you have not yet subscribed to Beck, what are you doing? You need to subscribe to her, show her some love, not just because she's Australian, not just because I've met her a couple of times, but because she is genuinely awesome at making booktube content. So go subscribe to Beck if you haven't yet. So I guess that's gonna be it for this video today, book lovers. If you happen to stay till the end of the video, leave me the sunflower emoji. No reason at all, I just like sunflowers. If you happen to enjoy this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet already. Join the amazing community of book lovers, and also I have social medias. I'm at GSwizzleBooks on Twitter and Instagram, and I'm also Goodreads. That's www.goodreads.com/GSwizzle, and finally I'm at TikTok. I'm at GSwizzle on TikTok if you want to follow me there for some bookish content. I love you, book lovers, and I will see you later. Peace.
All that I would have when I flipped it in a double. All that I would have when I flipped it in a double.